Welcome to the Talented Learning Show podcast series, episode 101. I'm your host, independent learning tech analyst Johnleh of Talented Learning. Today I interview Josh Bersin, founder of the Josh Bersin Company, and perhaps the most widely recognized voice in corporate learning and HR worldwide about the current and future state of corporate learning. You can find more of our fiercely independent content at talentedlearning.com. Well, welcome back, listeners. On this show, I'm fortunate to interview the world's leading experts in extended enterprise and corporate learning from both the vendor and the practitioner sides of the fence. And today I'm thrilled to bring you a conversation with someone who has shaped the very language of modern learning and development. Josh is the global analyst, a researcher's researcher, a trusted advisor to CHROs and CLOs across the globe. His latest work, the Revolution in Corporate Learning, dives deep into how AI is not only transforming how content is built and delivered, but fundamentally reshaping the role of learning professionals inside the business. In this episode, we're going to explore what's broken in the traditional L&D model, how AI native learning platforms like Josh's own Galileo are shattering the old paradigms, and why instructional design and content development and learning delivery is never going to be the same. If you ever wondered what the future of learning looks like, not just in theory, but in practice, this is the episode for you. Let's get to it. Josh, welcome to the Talented Learning Show. It's sure great to have you here.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to talk to you about all this stuff.
Well, it's really exciting. I know you don't remember because you've probably given a million speeches, but almost 15 or 18 years ago, you gave a speech at a Meridian Knowledge Solutions user group, and we met back then. That was the first and only time we met. So I've been following your career ever since that point, and so I'm just thrilled to have you here on the show. But for those that may not know who you are, which I think is close to impossible, except that a lot of my followers are from the extended enterprise following and may not, follow as closely on internal employee and HR type things. So maybe we can just start at the top and introduce yourself and your organization, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I have been essentially a research analyst and an advisor in HR and learning and technology related to those two topics for about almost 30 years, 27, 28 years. And so we have a company that does that, and we do advisory services to vendors. We have corporate memberships, and we have an AI agent of our own called Galileo that delivers a lot of this. And prior to that, I worked in technology for about 20 years at IBM, at Sybase, and a couple of startups. So I have a technology background, but I've really just fallen in love with HR and learning, and that's my life going forward.
That's your life going forward. So you do a lot of research, your organization, published research, probably more than anybody in the HR space. Tell us about the latest project that you worked on and what your biggest aha takeaway from that report is.
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, I think the one we probably want to talk about here is the revolution of corporate learning. And these projects take time, and they sort of bubble along, and we get signals of things going on from lots of companies, and then we decide to formalize the research later. And what happened was, for many years, I've been doing work in L&D, and my original kind of groundbreaking beginning was in what we call the high impact learning organization, which was the structure of L&D in the early days of e-learning. So I spent a lot of time in the e-learning era. And what I observed over the last decade or 2 decades was sort of a demotion of L&D from this very senior strategic C-level role to being the head of training, the head of content, the head of content libraries, the LMS administration, and many of the high value parts of L&D distributed out into the business. So we did a big study the last 2 years to figure this out. And we've really pretty much discovered something that most people now kind of beginning to understand, which is L&D is a 350, $400 billion space. It's very, very big. It doesn't belong completely in HR at all, although it got stuck there. And it is completely being transformed by AI. And we think it's going to be very, very different in the very short period of time. And that's what this research is about. We decided to call it a revolution because I think it is a revolution. I think it's as big or bigger than the e-learning revolution was in the year 2000, 2001. So that's the latest piece of research we're working on.
Wow, interesting. I'm currently writing a post just about all the AI I've seen in learning systems in the last year and just the different use cases. And I'm already up to, I don't know, I think 16 or 17 lists. That blog post is getting out of control. I'm curious to see what, you talked about
Well,
Galileo
it's
and
it's it's
AI
more.
revolution. What do you think?
Well, it's not just small use cases. I mean, I think the most natural reaction of AI and L&D is let's create some avatars. Let's use AI to create a chatbot. Let's use AI to build a course. Let's use AI to build graphics. Let's use AI to build simulations. It's all of that plus something even bigger, which is the shattering of the publishing paradigm of learning. The paradigm of learning that I've learned about in my experience for 25 years is the pedagogical sort of structure of training and education. The teacher collects information, the teacher creates a lesson guide or a course or a structured set of activities, and then you, as a learner, consume what the educator created for you, and you have interactive experiences with the educator, with the course, with the peers. And at the end of the course, you're supposed to have learned something. And that's very useful in education where we have grades and levels and stuff. But at work, sometimes what you want to learn is very simple, and sometimes what you want to learn is very complex. And that paradigm breaks down, and it has broken down for years. So we tried learning in the flow of work, we tried LXPs, we tried virtual reality, and 100 other things. But the fundamental paradigm of somebody building something for you is going to be shattered by AI because the AI builds it automatically based on what you as a learner want and need at the moment. So in these new learning platforms, and we know this because we're doing it with Galileo Learn, you're a salesperson or a manager or a professional or an engineer or a scientist or whatever it is, and you need some help and you want to learn something, you can ask a question or browse a course or talk to an AI tutor or whatever you need, and the system knows who you are and learns from your experience what your level of capability is. And by the way, the system builds its own skills taxonomy, so you don't have to do a manual skills taxonomy either. So all of these manual publishing processes start to go away, and the system becomes a dynamic enablement platform, not just a learning platform. By the way, that's what the original KMSI stuff was about too, the sort of knowledge management. So um, we don't, and then as a result of that, the L&D function now is different. We don't need 100 content developers. We might need some, but a much smaller number. And we can build content in multiple languages dynamically and quickly. And we don't have to go back and edit and replace and update old courses. We don't have to buy giant course libraries and deal with all the subscription fees to all of these vendors who maybe haven't updated their content in months or years. It's very, very different. And then the organization has information about the learning needs or the performance needs or the skills needs of the workforce in near real time because you can see what people are doing and asking for and demanding. And then the L&D function or whatever it ends up being called, I think it's going to have a new name, can focus on the most urgent needs day to day, month to month, local to each business area. And it doesn't have to all be centralized because if I'm running sales enablement or I'm in a manufacturing plant or I'm in a marketing department in some city or country, and I have a new document or a new process or a new price list or a new safety rules, I can literally put it into the system, and all of a sudden, the next minute, people are getting up-to-date information that's relevant to my local needs. And the corporate people may not need to be involved in that at all because it's not relevant in the other parts of the company. So it's the research report we wrote is not that long, but it's very profound in its implications.
Yeah, it sounds well scary in some ways. How long do you think this is going to take? Is this something
It's
that you see
happening
in
right
3 years?
now. I mean,
It's happening
well,
now.
I think the problem we're running into is that a lot of people are using AI to automate the old way of doing things. It's like
Mm,
your paradigm has to shift. Like I was at a meeting the other day and I saw a course from ATD on using AI for instructional design to build courseware. I'm like, th that's the wrong idea here. Maybe we'll never need courseware. We may not even call them courses. So in our case, we have an online HR academy that's about 8 years old. So we had a lot of courses and content and curriculum and resources and videos and stuff. In 5 months, we reconverted that to this AI system, which we call Galileo Learn. We now have 750 independent learning objects that can be dynamically assembled based on a learner's needs or an individual's needs, each of which might have been considered a small course in the old paradigm. And when somebody goes through and starts interacting with this stuff and say wants to ask a bunch of questions about employee experience or diversity or hiring or HR tech, they can go through these modules, and then there's an AI agent sitting on the side that they can ask any question, and the agent will not only answer the question for them from the content, it doesn't make it up, but at the end of the content, the system now challenges you and literally coaches you and says, okay, now that you've been through this course, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? To kind of get you to think like an instructor would. And this is available now. I don't, and now the problem is everybody already has an LMS, and the LMS vendors can't build this because this isn't an LMS. This is a dynamic content system separate from an LMS, and it may not even be possible for LMS vendors to build it without starting all over or
wow.
significant amounts of R&D. So I think this is going to change the platform market a lot. And there are only a handful of companies that are really building dynamic content systems from the ground up today. And the traditional LMS vendors are working on it and they're trying to figure out what to do, but it's a new world for them because these are AI platforms. They have to, have AI infrastructure, vector databases, RAG, all that technology that's in the agent world now is going to have to come to L&D.
Wow. Wow. That's really cool. I'm going to get back to who the potential competitors might be, but tell us about that 5.5 months. How did you go from all that content, the traditional way, to getting it down to the 750 objects? Did AI break
Well,
that
we
down
have
for you?
so
How'd you
so we
think about
work.
that?
Yeah, so the company we work with, the platform company is called Sana, and they're a
Mm,
very cool Swedish company we've been working with for 3 years now. And they helped us. But the primary process was building templates, colors, fonts, structured formats, and then literally loading the old content in and regenerating it into new content. There isn't a lot of meticulous page by page graphic design. In fact, there's virtually none. But you have to build templates up front. And most instructional design people or savvy web developers can do this pretty easily. And you have to make some decisions about how you want your content to look and what kinds of formats you want to have. We also had a skills framework. We call it an HR capability model. So we put that in there, and the system, after it generated all this new content, mapped all of the content to the capability model. And we
wow.
found out, well, there was some stuff where we had gaps. We knew we had gaps, but we never had time to do that. If you didn't have a capability model, which a lot of companies don't, the system will generate one for you because it knows every word of every video and every piece of content in the corpus. So, in the case of the Sana platform, and I think this is probably going to be true of any AI publishing system, it will tell you what the topics or skills are, and then you can decide, which ones you want to keep and what words you want to use. And what it also does, which blows my mind, is as people start to consume this content and go through it, it assesses your level of capability in each of these skills from beginning, mid, intermediate to advanced based on what kinds of questions you're asking and what kind of content you're consuming. So that's the beginning of this thing becoming your personal tutor. Because ideally, where this goes, and this is where AI is really kind of quickly going, if you look at what Elon Musk and everybody else is doing, is once it knows what you've been asking it and what kinds of things you've been doing with it, there's no reason it couldn't say to you, hey, Josh, last week you were asking about this topic on search engine optimization. I have some new material that you might want to look at. Would you be interested in looking at that now, or shall I save it for next week? I mean, I don't even know what all the things it'll tell you, but that's where these things are going, much more agentic in nature. And the other thing, John, that I think is important here is the other paradigm of online learning we've had for years was always the portal or the browser that you would access it through a browser. Well, we're all going to have AI agents on our desks, on our phones, in our glasses, in our workplaces, in our computers. So rather than going to a portal and logging in and browsing around to find the content you need, why wouldn't you just go to your agent and say, and ask it a question, and then the agent would show you not only the answer to the question, but the course materials that you might want to consume next. That's the way our Galileo platform works is the Galileo agent accesses the Galileo learning. So if you're in the agent asking questions, it'll show you courses and videos that you might want to see without you having to jump back and forth and say, oh, I got to go log into the learning portal and figure out what course to take. And, maybe I won't be able to find it and I don't have time.
Interesting. So you're doing this, from your outward-facing university, not to your employees, but to everybody else's employees, as part of Galileo. Um, how have you seen examples of organizations using this
Yeah,
to this
definitely.
degree internally? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're doing a lot of work with a big insurance company right now who's basically taking all of their training on claims processes, customer interactions, business processes, and moving it into Galileo Learn, as a matter of fact. And they're planning on keeping their regulatory compliance in their traditional LMS. We're also doing the same thing with a pharmaceutical company. We're in the middle of a big project with a defense contractor who's using Galileo Learn or AI for all of their new leadership programs because they have this company has to roll out a leadership program in 60 days. They got the mandate from on high. We want this new leadership program done in 60 days. Here's the new mandate. Here's the new topics. Here's the new sort of culture manifesto we want to get in there. So we're doing this in real world, and it's great. I mean, it's really unleashing, liberating the L&D department, to be honest, to do things faster and get closer to the business as opposed to getting bogged down in content publishing projects that go on for a long period of time, which you never really know if they work because you don't really know how much people consume it. Whereas in this case, you can see immediately how quickly people are consuming things because you can see what kinds of questions they're asking. Um, so there's those. And then there's other more interesting things like there's a large travel agency, big global travel agency that wants to hook the Galileo learning up to their performance system in the travel agent. So if the travel agent is on the phone with a customer and they want to ask questions, they want a bunch of little modules to be available so that they can quickly get access to like a 1 minute video on something they need to know while they're in the middle of handling a customer complaint or a customer service issue. So this is not just learning. This moves into the world of enablement and performance support. I don't like to call it knowledge management because that's kind of a loaded word. But most learning and development people know this, that I mean, I remember learning this years ago. Sometimes people don't want a course. They want a wallet card or they want a placard or they want a how-to or they want a checklist. Um, that's an instructional design discipline that a person would normally do. Now the system can do that for you.
Wow. Wow. What's been student feedback?
Spectacular.
Yeah.
The consumption, I mean, even our old academy, the reason we switched it over is people weren't using it as much. They were because we couldn't keep the content up to date. we had so much stuff in there. It was like every single course needed to be refreshed and updated every year. And we're not that big. We could never have done that. Now the content is fresh and new all the time, and we're building new courses and updating existing ones almost on a regular real-time basis.
Wow. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. And so how do you tie that now? You started off the discussion how L&D is essentially prioritized, from the seat at the executive table, putting words in your mouth. How is all this now with AI translated back to business performance? Are you tying that back to business metrics at all so that you can elevate the worth of
Yeah,
this,
I mean,
this
we interviewed
new
40
function?
CLOs for this, and we talked to a lot of them still. They are desperate to be more relevant to their companies. And, a lot of them now report to a head of talent, and they're stuck with these big, long, complicated, kind of talent development initiatives. All of a sudden now they can be very involved in real-time problems, which is what they want to do. We're rolling out a new product. We have a performance issue. We're doing a merger. We want to do a refresh of our management program, like I just talked about. I mean, we've been talking to Boeing, all these big companies that have these massive new learning issues, and they didn't have a way of addressing them quickly. Well, now they do. So I think the CLO uh, co cohort of people is suddenly going to be elevated again when they get their hands on this stuff and start using it to be, way more business relevant on a day-to-day basis than they have been for the last decade. And I know these people have the energy for this. I know they have the experience and the desire for this. They've just been bogged down with kind of an older paradigm to deliver solutions. And now they have a very new paradigm to deliver solutions. And the other thing that's cool about this is most companies have a whole AI strategy getting rolled out, with new agents for employees and other things. So they can plug into that. They don't have to start from scratch and be this little island of new technology like VR. Like VR was kind of cool, but it was like, well, we don't have VR glasses. We don't have VR tools. They had to push all this stuff. Now they can be part of the corporate AI strategy overall and deliver enablement and learning to it in the tools that the rest of the company is already adopting, whatever that may be. So it's perfect timing for learning people to be very excited.
Wow, the worlds are all lining up. So what we care about, and my listeners care about a lot, is customer education, partner education. So is
Mhm.
this all part of the same conversation in your
Yeah, I
clients
mean,
now?
think about, no, I mean, I've been involved. We have customer education, we do too. Customer education is the most dynamic part of learning you have because you have a new product, you have a new problem you want to teach people about, a new use case you want to teach people about. I mean, it's not that, most customer education has some formal training, but the demand for new stuff is very, very high. And the customers don't want to take a 4-hour course on some new module. They want to know what's changed and what's new. And by the way, I want the version of that for the release that I'm running, not the one that's generic. So don't give me the wrong stuff and give it to me in my language. It's great for that. And I think customer education and training groups are going to be thrilled with this kind of a platform. And they can do enablement too. They can build how-to guides, they can create AI coaches on helping people use their systems and tools and products. Every time I want to do something on the web, I go into YouTube and I try to find a YouTube video on somebody else that's done it, and then I waste 10 minutes trying to find the right one, and then I give up. If I could go to the company's portal and go to an AI agent in their learning enablement for me as a customer, I'm never going to be browsing YouTube again. I'm going
Ever.
to be sticking with them.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent. Excellent. And you mentioned Sana. What was your broad category name that you're trying to call these new AI platforms? Did you
Well, that's the problem.
spitball
Everybody, this is
it?
the never-ending problem of do you call it an LMS or not? Because if you don't call it an LMS, nobody knows what it is. But if you do call it an LMS, then it sounds like you already have one. Um, I mean, I call them, AI native or dynamic content platforms. they have LMS features and they do a lot of the things that LMSs do. They're not as old and maybe as arcane as LMSs are, but they have almost all the features of LMSs in a very modern way. Like in our system, we can go into the reporting system and I can see how many people have touched what content in the last hour. You can't do that in an LMS because it doesn't have that data. All it has is SCORM data. So there are really gonna be replacements of LMSs, but I think, if you think of them as AI native learning platforms, not AI tools on top of older learning platforms, I think you'll be better off if you think about it that way.
Wow, interesting. And you mentioned Sana as one. Is there any others on the list that are in that same
There's a
category?
company called UpLimit that's new that's got one of these. There's what's the name? Arist has one of these, a smaller company. There's about six or seven of them that are coming along that are very AI native. Um, the interesting thing about it is most of the people who are building AI native learning tools don't come from L&D backgrounds, so they don't have this LMS, 30-year legacy of knowing a bunch of L&D people. So they're a little bit smaller companies, but there'll be eventually the big ones will have to do something. Docebo's redoing their entire platform to become dynamic content. They're not there yet, but they're working on it. They've been doing AI-based content for a long time. Cornerstone has not done this yet. They've been working on other things, but they'll eventually have to do something here. Maybe buy one of
Mhm.
these companies.
Interesting. Interesting. We also see, I see Absorb and Cipher Learning also
Yep.
going down this path,
Hmm.
also pretty heavily. Well, to some degree, a lot of organizations. Well, this is a great conversation. We're out of time already, which happened very quickly. So let's get to let's get to the advice question. So if you add up Cornerstones, Docebo, Absorb, Cipher Learning, Litmus clients, we probably got what, 15, 20,000 organizations there that are on these platforms that are looking to move into the future. What advice would you give somebody that's on a traditional learning platform at this point? They haven't made that step into AI. What are the first things that they should be thinking about to start transforming themselves to a Galileo-like organization?
Well, before you necessarily buy a bunch of new AI features from one of the incumbent vendors, you need to see what's possible. And you can look at our system as an example. We'll show you how ours works as an example. And think about what life would be like if you could dynamically build content and deliver tutors and coaches and skills models and assessments dynamically and challenge the vendor to show you that, not AI features on the current system. That's fine. AI features on the current system will improve your productivity of using that system, but push them to show you the dynamic publishing capabilities, and then you'll see the differences between the platforms and the vendors.
All right. Sage advice. Josh Bersin, founder and CEO of the Josh Bersin Company. It was great to have you here, Josh, and sharing your wisdom. I've been a fan for a long time and so happy to have you here and let my guests meet you. And thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show. I'm sure you found value on this one and opened your eyes to what's possible now and in the future with artificial intelligence in corporate learning. You can find more of our fiercely independent content at talentedlearning.com.